Here we have RIOT Drums from It Might Get Loud. The point of this video is to be sort of the guide to how this actually works so you can get set up and recording with your drums pretty quick. So number one comes from this website right here, itmightgetloud.org. The RIOT Drums is inspired by classic 90s hardcore albums. And you can listen to a bit of it here. Go to a process sound for the death metal. Pretty cool, right? All right, so over 2,700 drum samples. You got one kick, one snare, 3 toms, a whole set of cymbals there. All right, read more of that if you want. Head over to this page to listen to more samples. We're going to be focusing on how it actually works, okay? They also have a lot of MIDI packs here at It Might Get Loud, which we are going to be using here in Pro Tools. We already have them set up. All right. So let's go ahead and see how this actually works. So whenever you load it up, we have it loaded up on an instrument track here in Pro Tools. This will be a little bit different depending on what DAW you have. But here from the drums page, of course, we can make things smaller or larger. All right, that's a good enough size for us. Click the drums to hear them. Okay, onto the mixer. So this is a very basic mixer. It looks kind of complicated at first, but it's not. So across the top, you have your different drums. So bass drum, snare, tom 1, tom 2, so on and so forth. All right. Then we have our close mic front, close mic rear, the pan, our room far, overheads, main level. We have solos and mutes. So solo that, or mute the kick in this case. Now, what if we solo this kick here? So just so we can get an idea of how this mixer works. So we can pan it. Make sure we're playing back there. Double click to put that back to the middle. So close front. Close rear. Now take the room down, room far, and the overheads down. I don't want a lot of that in my kick sound personally. Onto the snare. And of course, you just start mixing, just like normal. So again, I don't like a lot of room in my snare. Of course, change the main level there as well, if you want something louder or quieter. So for panning, of course, our toms would be panned a bit over here, here, and then way over here. I had a little bit this way. Sort of depends on how you like to pan your hi-hat. Crash. Let's say put this one over here. Put this one over here. Put a splash about there. This one about there. China over here. And then our ride over here. All right. We have our master out there as well. So that's your basics of the mixer there. Much better already. Now that we have some width to it, of course, I'd have to come in here and really start adjusting our microphone levels for each thing. But that's how your mixer works. Now on to the most complicated thing, and that's going to be your routing. Okay, so right now we're in the songwriting mode, which is probably what you're going to be in when you're, of course, songwriting, because everything is going to be, coming out our one stereo out. That's why we can hear everything with just that one track there. Then we have our simple mixing routing mode. Okay. So 6 stereo outs. Now, if I play back now, all you're hearing is the kick. Okay, and that's because, of course, everything else is going out different outputs, which we'll get to in a minute. So now we'll go down to the matrix, which we can see below. We can set everything up however we want. So we have up to 16 stereo outs. We can come down here to a track, go to plugin, and we can see we have up to 16 stereo outputs right there. From this, from this plugin. So this works pretty much the way the mixer does as far as reading the matrix. So our bass drum, our snare, so on and so forth, and then our different microphones. So we can actually have, so our bass drum So the close front is going out 1. The close rear is going out 1. The room is going out 1. Okay, you get that? So all the snare, for example, everything for the snare is going out 2. Everything for our tom 1 is going out 3. Everything for tom 4 is going out 4. Or tom 2 is going out 4. Tom 3 is going out 5. Okay, so you can set this up in a bunch of different ways. But of course, in order to actually hear this set up with our matrix, go to sound check, which is pretty cool. They added this too. For the songwriter, we can actually hear everything. Go back to the 16 out. So how would we actually set this up for either this 6 out or our 16 stereo outs? Well, we need to create those tracks. And what we want to do, at least here in Pro Tools, we're going to do 16. We're not actually going to use all 16, I don't think, but let's just have them. Now we're going to use stereo tracks. You could use mono if you wanted to. I'm going to use audio tracks. You could use aux input if you just want to monitor that and put plugins on, on different drums. You can do that with your aux tracks, but of course we can't actually record directly to the aux track. So it's probably best to choose your audio tracks. All right, let's go ahead and create that. Very good. Now with everything still selected here, we're going to hold down Control, Alt, and Shift, choose our input, release those buttons, back to plugin, and just choose this first channel 2. Now we can't choose channel 1 because of course that's already going out to our instrument track. But whenever we did that, we used that keyboard shortcut. Now we already have all of our selected tracks selected with a 2 and then 3, then 4, then 5. So we don't have to actually do that manually. So now if we just play back, still not going to hear anything. Okay, so with all of those selected, I could hold down Alt and monitor everything there. But let's just monitor some of these here. And now we'll play back. So we're getting our snare here. So of course, the smart thing to do at this point would be to name everything. And that's our snare. Monitor some more of these down here. And of course, start naming everything however you want. Now, what about our kick? We have a couple options here. We could actually take our bass drum, and since we're using our matrix here, you can see we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 5, 6. Let's go ahead and set this up. So hi-hat is going 6, crash is going 6, all of this is going 6. So let's go 7 here. Let's go 8 here. You could also come in here and just type in, say 9. Okay. And then say 10, and then 11, and then 12 there. Okay. And then back to our kick drum here. Since it's still coming out of this track, now what I could do, I could actually just split this out to a new track if I wanted to, or I could change the number. Okay. In this case, I think I'm actually just going to route it out to a new track just so I don't have to change the 1. Okay. Let's just do that here. You could, of course, like I said, just change the number to something else. It's a new track, stereo, audio, and we'll just call it kick. So that's going to route that sound out of this track into our kick. So now we'll have our kick coming through here. So that way we can, of course, put whatever plugins we want on just our kick, and we can adjust it as such. Okay. Of course, I have Beyond Solo as well. All right. That's our kick. Now, this is where it can get a little bit confusing, is because we have our close front mic going out 1 all the way through 12, but we still have our room going out 1 through 6. Okay, and room here 1 through 6, 1 through 6. So at this point, if you want to keep, say, all your crash going out 7, then of course you want to change your room close to 7, your room far to 7, your overhead to 7. You also have other options. Maybe you want everything. So maybe I want my crash all the way through the ride. I want all of those to be maybe out on 16. So I just have a different mix for the overheads. I could do that as well. You could have all of your drums going out to say 15. So you have sort of a, different overhead mixes, if you will. You could also split out, say, our overheads for everything to, 14 or something. And then the room far, all of that out to 13, and then the room close, all of that to 12. Of course, you wouldn't want it on the same one as your ride in this case, but I'm just giving you some examples of how you might want to set that up. So if I wanted everything out. Well, of course I wouldn't want this out. I might do 13 here, 13 here, 13 here, 13 here, 13 here. I might want to do that for all of these, perhaps, just to have the microphone separate from the main sound, our close and our close rear microphones. And let's just have these on 14. I think it makes more sense. It just gives me more control. You can, of course, split things out however you want, okay? I like it like this here, though. Just as an example. You could, of course, have, maybe I want splash 2 to all be on 16 or something like that. You could do that as well. You could have a little more control that way. So come down here, and we're coming out of, so here's 13. So I know 13 is drums. We're just going to call it overheads, even though it's all the room mics. And this should be our cymbals, right? Which is all on 14. So just sim. We're just going to say OH, just so we know that. So we can monitor those two now. Right, it gives me a little bit more control over, the plugins I want to put on everything, a little more control over the overall sound. I may not want that overhead sound or the room sound or the room close sound in the direct track. So our crash 2 or our crash 1 actually is going out of 7. So I have a little more control by having that on 7 instead of having the overhead with that, right? But of course it's all up to you, but I just wanted to cover this routing matrix because this is the hardest thing to understand, especially for new people. All right, so from there, of course, you would want to record your drums, correct? So I don't need that on record there. So then of course we could actually record this. Okay, so now we have recorded our drums just like just like a real drum kit, all out to different outputs there. And of course you could solo each thing. Then go ahead and start mixing as you normally would. I'm not going to get into mixing here because this is not a mixing tutorial. This is just how to actually use our RIOT drums here. All right, so that's how your routing matrix works. If you want everything split out to different tracks and recorded into your DAW, that is how you do it. And then of course you can use whatever plugins you want to mix. But if you're just setting things up for your songwriting, leave it on songwriting. That's the easiest thing to do. And once it gets time to actually record, you probably want to go to your matrix here. The simple mixing will work basically the same thing. 6 stereo outs. You'll still have to set things up here. Okay, just how we did, but of course not with as many tracks. But my opinion, use your matrix. All right. So if we listen now, say all, not actually going to hear anything. Why? Because we're not actually monitoring. So we have to actually monitor this stuff to actually hear it. Okay. Pretty cool they have that sound check in there. Makes it pretty easy to set all this stuff up. And lastly, we'll look at the MIDI note numbers. For the most part, you'll probably leave this alone. Just want to make sure you're aware that these MIDI note numbers here correspond to actual, actual MIDI notes. Okay. So if you end up changing something, just be aware, what happens there. So for the kick, for example, make sure I actually monitor that. That's going to be C1, right? Because it's on 36. If you accidentally change this or purposely change it to 35, now we play C1, it's not going to trigger. That's because it's the note before it. Okay, go down to 34. Guess what? Note before that. So that's how your CC numbers work there. All right, your MIDI numbers. So if something is not triggering properly, check out your MIDI numbers. If it's not working properly on your drum brain, again, you're going to have to just sort of check out the manual for each brain that you have to see how to program these things properly. Okay, and of course things like hi-hat. Whenever you're programming your drums, just keep in mind, say like the pedal hi-hat is 44, the close is 42, semi-open is 45, so on and so forth. Same thing for a lot of your cymbals with your chokes and whatnot. Those are different numbers than just the straight up, those are different numbers from the main hit. So that is pretty much everything you need to know about RIOT Drums. You should be ready to go ahead and start using it and start mixing, recording and mixing your drums here with It Might Get Loud RIOT Drums, again from itmightgetloud.org. Again, head over here to hear some full mixes here. Okay. And also check out their MIDI packs, which we are also using. So now we'll actually go through and do a little sort of a demo section there. Let me change this output back out here so we can actually hear this. There we go. We'll have a little demo section here so you can actually hear some of what RIOT Drums is capable of.